Past performance does not guarantee future results or similar results, but I'm going to put a footnote here, but I'm really excited today to be partnering with the people on this deal, because you're going to see they've done a pretty good job in the past. All right. We're going to break that down. We're going to show some of those examples. We got a lot to cover today. I'm going to go through this quickly because I want to turn this over to Gabriel in just a moment and start with the introductions there. But so we're going to talk about the team, the people on this deal that are making this possible. We're going to talk about some highlights of the deal. We're going to go over the property, the location, and the submarket. We're going to show you this is a slamming deal. Like, when the whole thing's done, it's in a very, very, very good spot. We're going to talk to you about some of these rent and sale comps. We're going to go into the business plan. We're going to talk about the financing and funding. We are going to talk about the financial projections. We're going to show you, if you put money into this machine, what does it look like on the way out? How much money are you going to make? Okay. We're going to talk about the time to close. And then we're also going to leave you with the instructions on how to invest. And like I said, we're definitely going to take a little bit of time and do some Q&A. All right. A little bit more about me. My name is Stephen Lee Thomas. I've been in this game for about 9 years now. I've invested on both sides as a general partner and a limited partner. And my superpower, I love this little bio that was dropped in here: finding incredible investment opportunities and wealth management strategies. So a little bit more about me. I'm going to hand the mic over to Gabriel to introduce himself and his partner, Aaron. Gabriel, take it away, bud.
Well, Gabriel Kraft out of Murphy, Texas. I live about 30 minutes away from this asset that we're going to be talking about today. I've known Stephen for 5 years. We were part of the same multifamily investment community, and we went through a lot of the same growing pains. Thankfully, I live here, boots on the ground, and was able to link up with other people that wanted to do this work that became part of my organization called Kraft Capital Investments. It's not just the one-man show. I have my chief operating officer and chief financial officer that I make a lot of my decisions with, Sean Griffith and Misha Kaufman. And we represent a team that's also, got some additional employees, 5 other employees that are part of our organization. We do this full time, and we all live within striking distance to the assets. And I think that's our key definition and bread and butter. Now, the superpower it has on here is building strong teams, because I'm the CEO, making complicated projects simple. These are complicated projects if you don't know what you're doing. And we always deliver on our promises. That's sort of our brand at this point. That's what our motto is. I'm working with Aaron Katz. Aaron and I met in 2017. He had the largest multifamily investment meetup in all of the city. And he's been investing since 2011. He's not able to be here tonight because we believe in what we're preaching when it comes to having freedom, financial freedom. And Aaron does that when he needs to. In this case, he is on a cruise with his aging, older, and very beloved father off the coast of Florida. So he doesn't get back in until maybe at the last hour of this session. He might be landing and docking in somewhere in Fort Lauderdale. So I said, don't worry about it. But if anybody wants to meet him, he's always happy to take a one-on-one. And Aaron brings a lot more superpowers to the table, including being able to coach and strategize through the purchase process, as well as through the execution of the business plan. He came up being the buyer broker for dozens of buyers of multifamily. So he would represent them from the buy side. It's a very rare thing, but the investment community that I grew up as a part of, he was one of the founding members of and became a buyer broker for. So when it comes to negotiating and making sure we get the best possible opportunity and saying no to deals or structuring a deal that's beneficial to our investors, it's almost unfair because, look, me and Stephen, we've done this a few times, but when you add in, my team and Aaron, it really feels unfair sometimes when they're looking at the other side of the negotiating table and it's me and Aaron. Good luck. It's been fun. Obviously building a team that can go out and do this again and again. And we are now starting to get a little momentum because the first deal we did together in 2024 has now reached its business plan ahead of target. And we will be talking a little bit about that, but fresh off the front stands of the news. There's no newspapers anymore. Gosh, I'm showing my age. But
I don't know. I saw the LA Times on the internet the other days. I think it exists that way.
That
Yeah.
was my first job, and I love my jobs. I take them seriously. I remember that distinctly being the newspaper delivery. But I'm getting back to the point here. Uh, the numbers we just got back for our refinance, we get to send out a large distribution by the end of next week because our refinance completes on that property. So we got in, executed our business plan, and instead of selling the asset, we were going to refinance and do a cash out. Banks hate doing a cash out. So if they're giving you a decent chunk of cash out that you can distribute, that means you're doing something right. They hate to push extra cash out in the refinance process. And of course, that's a tax protected, exciting opportunity for our investors. And then we did another deal in September of last year. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Why don't we go to the next slide? I think, ultimately, this is about the big team that's shown up here today because a lot of you are coming here because somebody is part of Stephen's community and has presented this opportunity to be part of this cash flowing asset.
Yeah, let me introduce the other faces that you see on the call today. So, we have a very unique opportunity here, and this is something that I'm really excited to be partnering with Gabriel on. So, we've come together as a group of fund managers with who we feel is the best in this market, Gabriel and Aaron, tons of experience in the space. And what we're able to do is work with the best operator, find the best deals because we have Gabriel, and then because of our strengths, partner with Gabriel and turn around and give you all as investors the best deal. Really, that's where the magic happens here is us coming together, working with Gabriel closely, and then getting you as investors the best opportunity you can to get your return here. So I'll do some quick introductions. You're going to hear from the rest of these folks a little bit later on this call. So we have Leslie Flores here, Alexia Lawson, Janice Greenlee, Dennis Bamford, Saeed Ishat, and Phil Moore. So we're going to hear a little bit more from them as we get into the rest of this webinar. But like Gabriel mentioned, you may be working with some of them, and they invited you onto this call. Just like Gabriel said, that is the strategic advantage that we have here that's very unique that you're not going to see a lot of opportunities structured this way. Gabriel, I want to talk a little bit more about your track record. So you mentioned that before, and I'm glad you brought up, some of your past experience. I'll just share really quick, and Gabriel's got a slide he's going to talk about here in a little bit. But when it comes to doing the hard work, the heavy lifting, that's like Gabriel's expertise. That's what makes him a unique player in the space. So, Gabriel, let's spend a few minutes and talk about your track record and honestly, the good, the bad, the ugly that you've seen and what makes you qualified for this deal.
Appreciate it. Yeah, and look, part of the reason I'm in my craft capital when we're out in the road, visiting assets, doing our asset management thing T-shirt is because I like my team to be fresh, and we've got Aaron out of town. I've got Sean taking a nice 2-week vacation to Africa to do a safari, and I've been gone for 4 days. So Misha handled the visits on Tuesday, and I've missed my babies. I've missed my assets. I have 1,300 units. It said 1,100 on that slide. Won't get into it, but I have 2 smaller deals and a brand new build that I've done with sort of separate partnerships that I don't consider part of this core group that I would call Craft Capital Investments. But I do have about 1,300 units here that I like to visit at least twice a week. If it's not me, it's somebody from my team. I'm partnered with Aaron Katz, who additionally has his own 3,000 units of assets under management. Aaron's done 20 deals, 9 of those full cycle. And between Aaron and myself, the average returns over a roughly 3.5 to 4 year hold time on average is above 2. Now, cycles move up and down, and many of those return profile numbers I'm mentioning are sort of at the peak of the market, where Aaron was a leader in the space. So what it has allowed us to do is take those experiences, come together, and find those diamonds in the rough right now as we start over again. What it feels like to me is I began this business in 2016, and it was because I had spent 2 or 3 years kind of dragging my feet between 2013 and 2016. I didn't take action. I didn't jump in. When I finally did, I did it with my own money, and I trusted in other people to sort of help get that investment turned around before I became interested in being, the leader of these projects. So 2016 through now, I've invested quite a lot, but I had to start by learning and then providing the some good faith into operators that were great. Taking that on, in maybe the start of, if we're using this as a sports analogy, I didn't start in the very beginning of the last cycle. I started in what I'll call like the sixth inning. If you look at 2010, 2011, that was probably the first inning of the last cycle. I jumped in a little later. And there was a little bit of buyer's remorse in hopes that I could have captured more of that swinging upcycle that was pretty amazing. But it also forced us to learn a lot of things the hard way and to watch a lot of people sort of have short-term success and then have some quick fall-offs, primarily because of two things. One, people not learning how to buy right, and two, people not learning how to operate correctly. The best way you can approach this business is to have amazing partners who teach you those things. And those partners aren't always the people like me and Steven and Aaron and the other partners on this call are going to be, as we put this out to their fund. It also includes everything that makes a value add multifamily deal successful. So we're talking about the property tax consultants. On this deal, they might be, our designated, they might be in the primary position to really make this thing knock out of the park. And we'll talk about that when we talk through the numbers. Our legal teammates, our people that help us conserve utilities and energy, our insurance provider, PGIM, who we are now working on our second multifamily fixed rate, long-term, beautiful loan for this asset on. Other people, including probably the most important for operations, our property management company, our third-party property management company. So we've got an A team and we've got an A team, if that makes sense. We've got all these supporting players that are going to help this be successful. Next slide, please. Okay. This is my baby that I just went to visit. I didn't feel like I could go too many days without visiting her. And I'll tell you, it was it's silly. It was a little emotional because 2 years ago, we took it over and it looked like the picture on the left. And it's not even doing the best job. I could have spent 30 minutes just showing you befores and afters. You jump on my social media. I've got some good examples of it. I've done better presentations around it, but it was a nightmare. But that is where you find the opportunities. If somebody's presenting something to you that looks absolutely shiny and beautiful and golden, unless they're a specialist in trophy assets, right? If they're claiming to be a multifamily value add person, there's probably not enough value add to make that thing really pop and hit. We took this thing over and it just had kept getting worse and worse right before closing. So we kept cutting the price more and more. So we finally closed, we reach a price, and the thing is 80% physically occupied, but about 71% economically occupied, meaning a big portion of the people living there aren't actually paying you. We went through a lot to turn that place around. A lot of it had to do with design work on key parts of the interior, like the beautiful leasing office upgrade or the wonderful interior, that we made look like a place where people would actually want to live. The table stakes is that when you're working with our group, we're going to find a great pocket. We're going to find a great area, a great place to do a value add deal in DFW. I don't do the hood. Stephen asked me to talk about good, bad, and ugly, but I did the hood the very first time, and then the second time, and then the third time I said, you know what? 3 strikes and you're out. I am not doing this again. And so we are always looking for extremely strong locations with great schools. We found one here, but the asset itself was the ugly duckling, absolutely the worst asset in the neighborhood. And we have turned it around. I'm super impressed and proud to say that other people's property managers come visit our asset to figure out how we were able to maintain this level of occupancy amidst certain other assets not doing so well. And a lot of times it just is about doing the small things right and the big things right and being there, showing up, being able to come to your asset 2 to 3 times a week to oversee the management company and make sure the outcomes stick. For this property too, they weren't doing anything for other income. This was an all bills paid property that we transitioned into a regular property. When you have an all bills paid property, you got people who maybe a time or two have skipped out on paying their electric bill, their water bill, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Not your best tenants always, sometimes, but usually it can be a little bit of a struggle. And we wanted a little higher class feel for this asset to match the area. It's in Bedford and Hearst, the mid cities, which is pretty much where all of our properties are, which is where the Tower Village opportunity is. But the key piece here is that we made a huge transformation and ended up increasing the net operating income which is directly in line with the value of the property, by 125%. Most of that driven by really kicking into gear other income, by adding a build back program in place, by charging for parking, by throwing a pet costume contest in October where everybody was like, oh, I want to decorate my pet. And then they show you the pictures, and then you turn around and find out who secretly has pets that they're not paying for on your rent, right? All those little things add up, and we were able to demonstrate that on this deal. Next slide. I don't want to take up too much time because we have a lot of presenters tonight, and there's some really important information to share about Tower Village. But I always say that if the math don't math, then there's a problem, and if the math do math, right, then you get these kind of results where I'm able to give a large distribution, like I'm sending out on Monday, to my big sister who has $500,000 in this deal, to my key investors who've been with me since day one who have several $100,000 in this deal and in every single one of my deals, right? Because they've put that faith in our team. And ultimately, I think a lot of it, the numbers are on the board there, but it's about doing a lot of gritty, hard work to get where we need to go. What I'll call out about this asset before we leave it is we were able to create $6 million in 2 years of unrealized gains. Those are sort of value that the bank, I'm not making these numbers up, the bank's really strict. It's probably a little more than this, but the bank was like, hey, we get it. This thing's worth $26 million right now. And so ultimately, if we sold it, we'd definitely be in the upside here. But there's much more to this story. We've only had it 2 years, so we decided to keep it another 5. It is performing extremely well. What our group is really interested in doing is finding opportunities where maybe other people don't quite see it. And on this particular slide, you're seeing what used to be called Oak Park, which has now been rebranded as the Miranda on Pioneer. Just in case you're wondering, my team and I have been going back and forth on this, but we will probably not change the name of Tower Village to the Miranda at Las Colinas. As much as I love it, we do understand branding, and the Tower Village deals in such a prime, nice location that it might be a little bit of a disconnect in brand. Whereas the 2 assets I just showed you have average rents of about $1,200. The expected final average rents on the asset that we're going to look at, this is without bumping them, this isn't pro forma, this is going to be where we go after renovations on these units, is about $1,500. So it's an even nicer location than we've been buying in. And so the asset that we're going to look at may have a different name to it. But I rebranded this with something that was key and important to me. That's my wife's maiden name. And in Brazil, where she's from, they give the middle name of each kid as the maiden name of the mother. So that name is in 3 of the most important people in the world to me. And that is how I treat these properties. These are the most important people in the world to me. These are the working class folks that need a nice, safe place to live. In the case of Oak Park, we took this over just in September. And when we got it, it was 80% occupied. Now, I expected that when we got it, we would take the occupancy down to about 73%. Would have been a similar ratio to what we had to do on the Miranda on Central and Pipeline to turn that deal around. We didn't have to do that. There was something weird when we did diligence where it was like, this is an already amazing community that has been being owned by a slumlord, and then for a couple of years after that slumlord passed away, nobody had been managing it to its fullest capacity. So we got in and very quickly found that people were willing to renew at our pro forma numbers without us doing anything to the interiors. You'll see a picture of one of the interiors we renovated on the right. It's nothing fancy, right? We kept the old tile floors, not because it's where I would live, or maybe most of the investors on this call would live, but it's where the working class folks in South Irving, in this case, would live. And so, ultimately, we've been ending the month at a ridiculous level of delinquency. No, everybody pays, right? And that's really key in this business. You got 99% occupancy and everybody pays. You've added a ton of value. And I fear to say that I think Tower Village because it's in a better location, has even more opportunity for rental increase. But if we can achieve anywhere near this, I'll be extremely proud, and I'll be over to help everybody on this call make a lot of money. Look, let's get to the next piece, because I think that's the most important sort of thing to take away from is we've done it and we're about to do it again. And every time we've done it, we've just gotten a little bit better. And in this case, the little bit better is that the opportunities here are twofold. We get the prime location of Las Colinas. If you're not from Texas, the rest of our teammates will be covering that a little bit later. It's a prime location. You've got some of the other things you see on there. I mean, an amazing bedroom ratio. So instead of being a bunch of really small studios and one bedrooms like you see in some of these deals that I would say are overpriced, we have 83% twos and three bedroom units. Now, if we have a little bit of time, and if there's time sort of maybe at the end after everybody's had their presentation, I'll share a little extra, we'll call it icing on the cake here, because we discovered something over the last 3 weeks of diligence that's going to add even more money. We did not underwrite that, but I'm willing to share it with this group. Steven, you guys are special. I really appreciate you getting this big audience, and I'm excited about it. So I kind of
So what you're saying is stick around to the end if you want to know what the secret is. It's going to add
or
some
watch the
extra money,
replay. He's
right?
going to replay. He doesn't have to handcuff you guys for time. It's Friday. We really
Stick
appreciate
around to the end if you want to know what's going on. Yes. Do not drop off this call. You got to stay until the very end.
Another teammate's going to cover the purchase price, but look, we were not the highest purchase price. Me and Aaron sat through a best and final process that was very competitive. Everyone jumped on this opportunity because the owners had had it for a long time. We knew it was going to trade, and because the owners, yeah, I won't spend too much on this. Just let's just leave it at a very high level. They had let this become a forgotten child.
You'll see in some of
You'll
the
get it. You'll
photos,
get it.
like
I
you're
won't deep for it
yeah.
too much. But what I will lastly call out on here before I pass over to one of my teammates is there were 4 different ways we were going to increase value, and I want to say that now because later we'll talk specific numbers on each of those 4 drivers and what that means in terms of resulting in value creation, like the 6 million we created at the first property we showed you. There's opportunities to increase rents because they're way under market. The vacancy can be improved slightly. It's 90% physically occupied. They've got some people who are paying on time for the most part, even though there's a couple people I might have to kick out. But we can get that up to 93, 94%. The most significant opportunity is in cutting costs, which I've never had an opportunity to do so on here. The big 4 issues are going to be cutting costs, cutting costs, cutting costs, cutting costs, and we get to do that before we take over the asset. Sounds too good to be true, but we'll explain exactly how that works in the state of Texas. And we found 4 units during diligence over the last 3 weeks. We realized that the maintenance office was being used. Sorry, the maintenance office was really 4 apartments being used as the maintenance office, which is silly. These are 4 2 and 3 bedroom units. So we are going to change that and bring those 4 units online. And the fun part is this owner was so checked out, they didn't know that there were 268 units. When we got under contract, we were paying $102 per door because we were buying 264 units. We actually found 4 free units on this business plan, amongst many other potential ways to add more value to the deal. I'll be quiet now and pass it off to my teammate.
Awesome, man. Sayed,
Hey,
why don't
what's
you
going
tell us a
on?
little bit about this deal here? What does this look like? Talk to us about the deal summary, man.
Yeah, let's talk about the deal summary because for most people on this call, this is what's relevant. We're projecting a 95% gain over 5 years. What that means is if you put in $50,000 at the end of 5 years, your return's going to be $97,500. Now, 6% of that is going to come in the form of cash flow. Ultimately, your average annual return is looking at 19%. 75-25 investor sponsor split, 268 units. The secret sauce that Gabriel mentioned is it's actually 264 units for hidden, soon to be converted to 268 units. 1970s build, fantastic. One fun, cool piece about this deal is if you can incorporate some of those expense changes we can make right at the beginning of the hold, we have a stabilized 8 cap. That is nutty. What that means is right now it's producing income and it has potential to produce even more income than what it's at right now. Conservatively for this property, price point of 101, very good price in the Las Colinas submarket, very affluent area of Irving, Texas. The renovation budget is large, but when you look at it in relation to the purchase price, 27 million, I would say that's about a normal budget for renovation. And we have a fixed 5.6% interest rate on the loan, which we can discuss later. Other than that, in summary, the numbers speak for themselves.
So there's only one thing I want to add here. Saeed, when he was invited to participate in this deal and bring his investors in, um, he's like, I got to make sure I look at the underwriting here, and said, absolutely, man. You got to make sure if you're bringing investors in that, you're comfortable for you and your investors. He took a look at it, and here's exactly what his expression was. He says, man, anybody who doesn't invest in this deal, you're just not normal. Like, he's like, this is such a good deal. Like, this is knocking my socks off. So yeah, I agree. I think it's a fantastic opportunity here. So we're gonna quote that is Saeed Ishat. If you don't invest in this, I don't know, what are you thinking? That's kind of where we're at right now. Fantastic deal. So and just to clarify there, with the you invest 50,000, you're gonna get your money back, plus you're gonna make another 95% on that. So like all in, you're going to be close to that 100 grand. You're basically going to double your money is what that's going to look like if you were to invest. Another way to say that is you put $100,000 in, which several people are going to come in at $100,000. You're going to get your $100,000 back, plus you're going to get 95. That's what our projections are looking like right now. There's some other things that are being explored right now. That there's always things that are baked in. Gabriel's going to talk about a little bit more. Always things that are baked into the business plan that are like icing on the cake. But as a conservative estimate, that's what we're looking at there. So Saeed, go ahead. Also, let's see. Oh, we got that one. I think I skipped a slide here. Sorry, Saeed. Tell us about investment highlights here, and why, when you looked at this, you were so excited.
Yeah, and I just want to let the audience take a look at this. It's like on Halloween where, when you go trick or treating and you don't see what's inside the bag until, the end of the night. These are the goodies, great location, amazing loan terms, ugly duckling to swan renovation, great floor plan mix, ample rental rate upside, high growth market, conservative business plan, high occupancy submarket, buying at a favorable price. And correct me if I'm wrong, Gabriel, Las Colinas, like, it has some clout to the name, doesn't it? Like, this is a good area.
Yeah, yeah. This again, I get it. We're from all over the country. Everybody was highlighting all those places on the West Coast. Some of the folks calling in from the South or the East Coast. But if you're here in Dallas, Texas, Las Colinas is a submarket within a great submarket, and it's becoming the new heart of the town. As a lot of the wealth moves up towards the north, it is this beautiful bullseye in the middle. And I don't want to steal the thunder from our teammate, who will talk a little bit more about it, but you're absolutely right. It definitely has cloud in the name, Las Colinas, which is why I keep saying it.
Well, let's do this, Gabriel. Let's show them some of the pictures of what it looks like now versus how it'll look once we get there.
All right, let's go. This will be quick because this is the part where there's a lot of pictures. But I like this first picture because you can see how close it is to downtown Dallas, uptown Dallas. I have been trespassing a lot because it's my time to do diligence. I get to go there and visit all the units and see the asset. And I just to go at night, go early, go on a Saturday. Every time I go, I love it more. But one time I went and I had to do a business meeting in University. I think it's called Village. It's not University. No, maybe it's University Park. There's this cute little area that is high end. I was on the highway and off the highway in 7 minutes, eating like a prime sort of Michelin's recommended restaurant, right? Like one of those near Michelin starred restaurants. And I could be back here in literally under 10 minutes. It was shocking to me how close it is to the downtown core. But, and again, I won't steal the thunder, Las Colinas is also home to 10 Fortune 500 companies. It's where all the good jobs are. So if you're in Los Angeles, think of it as like the Silicon Beach area. There's lots of other examples. If you're in Florida, in South Florida, you might think of it as like the Los Olas neighborhood. Young people, good jobs. If you come into this first picture on the left, there are two large apartment complexes that will represent some of our competitors. Even though it's a much newer asset class, they're literally double the rents for their 2 bedrooms and similar ratio for their 1 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. It's nuts. There's nothing else sort of old vintage like this, because this asset was an old residential complex owned by the university that they sold 10 years ago. And so it has a unique flavor to it. It's also built a little different, has a beautiful pond, this area that I call the grassy knoll in the front. Why don't we flip through a few? Just note, it's 18 acres. It's huge. It's very large, which is part of where all that CapEx money is going to. Now, if I told you it was very pretty, I'd be lying to you. I love to see an old, ugly asset, as I showed you on my other two assets. We can make it look pretty. But importantly, we won't just make it look pretty. This thing has intensely expensive bones. It is built from tilt up concrete. So not even like you see in a lot of the Miami buildings where it's concrete bricks, it's tilt up the way you would on an extremely expensive industrial build. It's built to last, it could last through a nuclear blast. It's very, very strong. And what that does is it lowers your heat bill, right? And it helps you conserve energy in our hot summers of Texas by, staying hot when it's supposed to be hot in the winter and cool when it's supposed to be cool in the summer. It is very heavy though. And so, I'll let my teammate talk through the CapEx plan. There's some work associated with finally doing something here, but it's never been painted. This is a 1970 Pepto-Bismol pink. We're going to get rid of it. Bring a new facade, redo the parking lot, get some new striping, keep it simple, right? We don't have to go over the top. You don't see a gigantic facelift here, just fresh and new. Keep going through these facades. There's what it looks like now. Here's what we're going to make it look like in the future. We're playing with 2 or 3 variations on the paint, so don't hold me to it, but we're going to make it look beautiful. It has old stucco, so we need to pick the right kind of color. And we found a couple options that are going to sort of hide some of those imperfections in the stucco while doing it properly. And now here's an aerial view. Another important thing we're going to do is bring new life to the parking lot. The parking lot isn't horrific, but it's just large. So it's going to take a lot of that seal coat and that fresh striping to preserve it. In addition, has a great fountain. The fountain's very light work. It's one of the cheaper amenities to keep up. It sounds crazy, but they have built into sort of the business plan a team that comes through and renovates, or I should say, services that for us. We're going to add some river rocks that both protect for drainage and make it look a little prettier, sort of at the entry drainage from the pond. But ultimately, what you're looking at is an asset that's sitting right across from the University of Dallas, where all the wealthy people send it's a Christian university where the tuition is about $70K a year. And so you get a lot of the billionaires send their kids there. But this is not a college housing. This is where a fair mix of about 30% younger people, we'll call it 23 to 33, to age myself a little bit, where they have either an opportunity to save some money on rent relative to other developments that are close to their job, because Las Colinas has got 10 Fortune 500 companies, or the other 70% are workforce housing folks. We think we can capture a lot more people's attention as they drive by these streets. It's got great cross traffic on Northgate, about 7,000 cars per week pass there. Sorry, I'm dorking out about all the details here. It's obviously heavy on my mind because we're in the middle of this transaction. But why don't we just go ahead and take a look at a few more of the pictures. Interiors don't need much work. White is what my property management company is okay with. So we're gonna get rid of the ugly industrial lighting and put in some can lights, add some new cabinets, and then move on from there. They already have great trim and newer flooring. It's in good shape because, again, it's made out of concrete. So, C-class tenants that some of them have been let in, some of them more, I would imagine at some point, but you can't tell. Unlike the other assets that I showed you, the walls, you really can't mess with them. So everything is very firm and solid when you visit the asset. Go to the next slide, please. Bathrooms are simple. We just like to reframe them. I mean, when somebody goes in to decide if they're going to rent one of our 2 and 3 bedrooms, a lot of times they go straight to the kitchen, straight to the bathroom, and then they're like, honey, this is where we should stay. So we keep it simple. One other important thing from this picture, we are going to change every toilet. Go back to the last picture. Yeah, it's different. It should be a different toilet. Fast forward to the next one. Let me see if yeah, perfect. So you see how it got a much smaller tank? We're going to institute a water savings program to go from 1.6 gallon to 0.8 gallon. Now, because I'm super nerdy about these things, I said, well, wait a second. If it's flushing half as much water, are we going to have trouble with our plumbing? We are instituting a special technology that is non-gravity, and the flush system is just as powerful as a 1.6, but it is half the water. And that is a huge water savings. It's going to save a 6-digit number from our operating expenses every single year. Other than that, we're keeping it pretty simple in the bathrooms. Keep going. Swimming pool, make it look nice. Go ahead to the next one. Boom. All right. So we've done it all of our assets. We had to do 2 pools at one of them. This is an example of what we got going on here, everybody. Okay. This is the experience someone first sees when they come in your lease. And it's not terrible. That's why they're at 90% occupancy and 92% pre-lease. But is there room for growth on income? Absolutely. Because this is the kind of look and feel we want to have in our units when people walk in, right? Something fresh, something modern, and it does not take a huge investment. Keep going. We were going to add some signage and some landscaping toward the front with a big, nice sort of capture of attention when people see what I'm, this is an inside Dallas joke we call the grassy knoll approach, because this is the space between the university across the street and our asset. And there's just a lot of eyeballs on this space. We need to bring it to life. Next one, please. The backyard, this back area that's completely unused. We're on 18 acres. There's every amenity that you would want on this type of an asset. Gym, water element, a volleyball court. There's a playground for the kids, 6 different places to wash your clothes, clothing care centers. But there's just this extra space. We're going to bring it to life with a fire pit and some barbecue grills, and make it something that really captures the attention of the higher quality tenant that we're looking for. But one key piece, go to the next one, is this is going to allow us to bring those 4 units that are currently being used as a maintenance office back online. We're going to build in backyard number 2, the maintenance ops. It's actually going to be a prefab that we bring on, and we've got enough money to kind of finish it out for about 120 grand. But that's a great trade. I would trade an extra 120 grand for 4 units each and every day of the week. If you do the math on that, you can see why.
Absolutely. Gabriel, I really appreciate you taking the time to give us that overview. I think it tells a really good story there of what's going on, the huge value opportunity that's there if you just look at what's going on. So I'm going to take a little break for a moment. Janice, how you doing? Can you talk to us a little bit more about we saw some of those photos. Can you break down this property and talk to us about some of those amenities and other things at the property?
Absolutely. Thank you. So we'll start out with the simple. As Gabriel said, it's 268 units on 18 acres, which is a pretty good sized property. It's got really desirable features and amenities. Plenty of parking for our tenants, on-site laundry, and that's a big deal for residents. They don't want to haul their stuff in their car to go find a laundromat. And then really the other thing I want to point out is extremely large unit sizes. It's an average of 920 square feet per unit, and that's pretty big. I mean, people, they want to get value for what they're renting, and so that's a nice big unit size. They just need to be refreshed, and the amenities need to be brought back to life, So you can see on this slide, there's quite a few amenities, dog parks and things like that. But really, to me, for residents, those 3 are the big 3. So next slide. Okay, now this is what's exciting. We are buying well below replacement costs. If we were to build this today, it would cost us over $310,000 per unit. As Gabriel said, it has tilt-up concrete construction, so it has a really great set of bones, and we're getting it at a huge discount at just over $101,000 per unit. So at about a third of the replacement cost. That's a huge value. I mean, we really just don't see that anywhere right now. And to top it all off, everything around us is either newer or performing at a much better cost or basis per square foot than we are getting. So we're about 30 cents per square foot below what's happening in the market right around us. And as you can guess from the pictures that Gabriel showed, a lot of that is largely due to the lacking cosmetics on the property. And so those are great fixes that we can do and make it better right away. If you can look at these comps here, so there's 4 comps. The first 2 are Class C properties, so very similar vintage, but they're not right in our immediate pocket. They're a mile or 2 away. And you can see they're getting quite a bit more than we are. And then comps 3 and 4 are Class A properties that are very nearby. And as Gabriel said, they're getting about double what we're getting. So there's a huge delta in where we're at and where our competition is at. And we want to bridge that gap. Now, because we want to be conservative, because we want to be careful, we're not underwriting to fill that entire gap. You know, we're going to be somewhere in the middle, and that's where we're projecting. We want to under promise and over deliver whenever we can. And in fact, our property management team thinks that we can go higher, but we want a business plan that really is very achievable to hit those 95% returns. So anyway, that's it for me. I think Leslie is up next, unless you're going to take it back, Stephen.
Nope, we're gonna let Leslie run with it. Leslie,
Awesome.
talk to us about Las Colinas. Why is it so incredible?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, for introducing me. So before, we talk about Las Colinas, I just want to emphasize that we're not just looking at Tower Village on its own. We have to emphasize where it's at, location. So Las Colinas is such an incredible spot. And as you can see just in this picture, it has a beautiful lake. There's a lot of new buildings. The team also found that there's like a lot of young people living in this environment. So we want to take a look at, it's very important to take a look at the environment, right? So if you go on to the next slide, we mentioned this. I know Gabriel was already getting excited, but there's a lot going on. As you can see, it's home to 10 Fortune 500 companies. And we're right here where the star, if you can point at it, Stephen, yeah. So Tower Village, in addition, we have University of Dallas just right above. So we have a lot of student community. It's not student housing. There are some students we found, but that's not what it is. It's a combination of different tenants. We have Old Texas Stadium. I mean, we have a bunch going on. We have Country Club. And I know there's a few golfers out there. I know, Gabriel, you mentioned the Nelson. We have the Nelson right next to the Ritz. So I was like, we can even do a trip and then go visit the property and then go play some golf. But there's just a lot. You can see there's a lot going on. And then we have DFW. We have the airport. And that's huge because we're also finding that there's a lot of people that may be employed that live at Tower Village. So you can see that there's a lot going on, and the community and the environment matters in where we are at Las Colinas. But yeah, there's restaurants. I mean, you can see, wanted to put it in perspective for everyone. You can go on to the next slide. Also, Las Colinas is an A location. I mean, we've already emphasized it, where there's a lot going on. There's a lot of employers, there's a lot of great companies, but demographic wise, right? We are looking at the population there's a lot of people that live there, and it's projected to grow, right? And then we took a look at the average income. It's over 90,000, and then medium over 70. And why is that important? We know that it's an A class. There's people that have a good income, good stable income, that are living in this location.
Yeah, just to put that in perspective, a B, C class property, your median household income is probably going to be 55,000. And what that means is, at the current rents that are there today, that's probably going to be spot on, but there's more disposable income and available for this property. Like Gabriel said, it's basically just a property that they haven't paid a lot of attention to. There's a ton of opportunity. You saw those rent comps. This property is well below those rent comps. Even with business plan, it still keeps rents below the comps. And there's so much room to grow on this. And what's great about it, like Leslie said, is the local demographics support it as well. So it's not just, yeah, it'll hopefully work out. Like I said, they will be, that is not an issue right here. They basically need this property to be renovated because it, like Gabriel said, kind of like the ugly duckling in the neighborhood right now. All right. Next slide, Leslie.
Yeah, go ahead. Next slide. All right. So I know that I invited some of you came to my in-person presentation. And if not, if you're a savvy investor, we talk about risk mitigation, right? And one of that aspect that we talked about was the occupancy level, right? We want to make sure that the Tower Village, either if it's not occupied, that we're going to drive occupancy. And one of the risks is, how do we know they're going to stay, right? And one factor with our CoStar database, what's going on? What's the competition? What does it look like, right? And through our market research, we found that there's nothing going on right now, which is, that's something that we want to look at beyond. Yeah, you can see in the next couple of years, he's pointing at it. Sometimes when there's new construction happening, they have concessions and people or tenants may leave, but this is something else that we're looking at. So we're really doing our market research, and there's no starts, there's no construction, nothing happening right now. And that's important for us to know and consider. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that? But that's yep.
Covers that. Dennis.
Yes.
Let's talk some numbers now a little bit. Walk us through the next few slides. We're going to dive into the budget, some of the underwriting, and some of that data there.
All right, Stephen. Before we start, I wanted to, before we started talking about the capital improvement budget, I wanted to say thank you, Gabriel, and to Aaron for giving us this unique opportunity to bring this property to the investors. So thank you. We budgeted 17,200 per unit for renovations. And for the total planned CapEx, it's going to be 4.6 million. Maintenance and repairs are going to be the biggest ticket items. This is a 1970 asset, and the construction is very unique for its time. As you've heard earlier, it's a tilt-up slab construction, which is how most warehouses are built today. So these are very solid. It's very solid building. So that's good. That's good. 17 of the roofs are going to be redone. The other half of the roofs that have already been done by the previous owners. Electrical and plumbing and parking lots will be brought up to today's standards. About 100 units will be replumbed from water lines all the way to the drainage pipes. And the interiors of these units will be modernized with lighting and doorknobs, hot water heaters, and paint, just as soon as we get the keys at closing. Gabriel has been in this market for a while, and you could say he's probably an expert, and he has developed a good working relationship with the best-in-class contractors. And this should help us cut some cost on the renovation budget. The amenities, this is an affluent area, and the tenants are going to be expecting amenities that, this property is lacking those amenities right now. So we're going to upgrade either the existing amenities, or we'll be adding playgrounds, dog parks, grilling areas for the tenant, and pool upgrades. We also are putting in a prefab building for that maintenance crew because we found those 4 units that Gabriel had talked about earlier. So that'll definitely help the bottom line. The exterior will be the most visually dramatic. They say Aerosmith said that pink was their favorite color. Well, we're unfortunately going to be using some paint to go over that with some landscaping, which will bring this property in line with the Class A assets around it. Next slide, please. We brought in 3 property management companies to do OpEx reports on this asset. And we took the most conservative of the 3 and then brought expenses up and the income down. And this gives us the opportunity to meet operational targets 80 to 90% of the time. So this deal has over $200,000 in extra expenses built in. And year 2 through 5 includes $600,000 in extra CapEx, which is above what the bank is required. There are plans for some additional revenue, and Gabriel had hinted about this earlier. That some other revenue streams that are unrealized, and we're going to be looking at best how to implement those. It sounds like we're going to get to hear the inside scoop. Next slide, please. Now, timing. This is a 506B at the moment until April 24th. And we want to emphasize the importance of this for non-accredited investors. So if you're interested in this opportunity, we'll need you to book a call with us as soon as possible so we can go over any questions you have. And then you can decide if this is something that makes sense to you. The links and the links for these documents will be sent to you, if not already have been sent. So Phil, why don't you fill us in on the business plan?
Phil, before you jump in, I'm just going to add a little bit to this. If you're, and I'll cover this more then, but if you're not sure what is this 506B thing, I don't know. Just schedule a call. Really easy. We'll walk you through this whole thing. The important thing to know is have the conversation with us sooner rather than later, and we will help give you the guidance. Additionally, like Dennis said, we will make sure that we provide you. This is a very small screenshot of underwriting. It can be complicated, okay? We don't want to just throw this stuff at you. If somebody wants a walkthrough of underwriting, we can do that, okay? Again, just like Dennis said, we're here to help you make the best decision for you, and we want to make sure that all those resources are available for you as well. The 24th, if you don't have the calendar in your head, that's next Friday. So what that means is, if you're considering this, we're going to give you a link. We want you to go just get that process started. And then we'll work with you to determine if you're accredited or not, 506B. But the timing, we want to make sure that you got your paperwork in on that. So after this webinar, we're going to give you some more information next Friday. And I'll cover this again. Next Friday is when we're going to be asking you guys to get some of that documentation signed and over to us. Okay. All right, Phil, I'm going to pass it over to you, bud.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Okay, so here is the business plan. And what we have here is the 4 value add opportunities that was discussed earlier, and we can translate them into real tangible NOI and revenue growth here. So at the end of the day, revenue growth comes down to a few simple things, right? Increasing occupancy, reducing expenses, bringing rents to market, and improving operational efficiency here. And the math here is actually very straightforward. And keep in mind, this is the strategy that's been executed on prior deals. And of course, the results have been tracked to create these projections. On this asset specifically, though, expense reductions alone represent over $500,000 in savings, which will positively impact the profit and loss almost immediately. Okay, so we've also underwritten these conservatively, leaving margin for execution. Now, on the revenue side, we're currently about 30 cents below market rents. Importantly, we don't need to push rents to the top of the market. We simply need to bring them in line with comparable assets, and that gives us a clear and achievable path to growth. So in addition, there's operational upside, which includes reducing economic vacancy, improving collections and processes, capturing income currently being left on the table, which we had discussed about that. These are basic fundamentals, and it's not speculative upside, right? We're also adding value through newly identified units, which will generate approximately $70,000 in additional annual revenue. So when you combine all of this and apply a conservative 6.25 exit cap rate, we project creating roughly $28 million in value. Now consider this, we're raising approximately $14 million in equity, right? So that means we only need to achieve about half of that to effectively double investor equity. And that leaves significant margin for safety there. Now we can go to the next slide. And as we were discussing earlier, we've structured the investment across 4 tiers, 100K, 250K, 500K, 1 million. Okay, so obviously the larger the investment, the more favorable the return. So if you look at the 100K level, investors can expect approximately $95,000 in profit And that's a total return of about $195,000 over 5 years, pretty much almost double your money. So, and then cash flow averages around 6% annually, starting at roughly 4.5% in year one, with distributions are going to be beginning shortly after acquisition. So unlike the most of deep value add deals out there where cash flow didn't begin until year two, this opportunity is designed to cash flow from day one. So while still delivering strong value add upside, it's going to be there as well. So it truly offers the best of both worlds. And that would be immediate income and long-term equity growth. And that's ultimately what makes this opportunity so compelling. So before I wrap up, though, I want to highlight something that's really important, and that's alignment. Alignment means we intentionally keep our asset management fee, first off, very low, just 0.5%, because we don't build our business around fees, right? More importantly, we don't even take that fee up front. So what that means is that our team that's on site regularly, they're managing renovations, they're overseeing CapEx, they're reviewing financials every single week, doesn't receive asset management compensation until investors start receiving distributions. So in other words, we don't get paid until you get paid. So that keeps us fully aligned and highly motivated to execute at a high level and deliver results. And we're already seeing that play out here. So we're excited to be sending distributions, which is now allowing for strong ongoing payouts. And then at the end of the day, our goal is simple, not just to meet these projections, but to exceed them even further. So because we're the ones investing alongside of you, just want to let you know, when this deal performs, it's a win for everyone involved. And I think that's the healthy way to approach this. And that's about all I have to say.
Great, Phil. Let's go to Alexia. So we're going to talk a little bit about the tax advantages. So not only is it's a killer deal on the front end, but you got some tax advantages here that you need to be aware of. So Alexia, go ahead and break down what we're going to see in these tax advantages.
Okay, so one of the biggest reasons people invest in multifamily is for the tax advantages, right? So if you're not leveraging the tax side, I'm going to be honest, you're leaving a major opportunity on the table. So let me explain this a little bit further. So depreciation is how real estate lets you reduce taxes with paper losses. And through a cost segregation study, we're able to accelerate depreciation and create those tax savings, which is the benefit of bonus depreciation. So there's a lot of information to process, and I don't want this to be too overwhelming, but what's most important for you to understand is that you will receive a document every year called the K-1, which records those paper losses. And this is truly a game changer for the tax code. So another thing to note is that if you're a real estate professional, this will be slightly different for you. And you can roll your losses into some of your other income streams. But either way, you'll want to discuss this with your CPA. But the K-1 you will receive is going to help you reduce what you pay in taxes on the returns that you make on this deal. We'll also be partnering with some experienced providers to make sure that this is done at a high level. And we've also recently learned a new strategy of running 2 studies. One right after we take over the property that captures renovations and all of that CapEx. And another before tax season closes because we really, really want to push those numbers as far as possible. Now, we're still working on getting an exact number, but we're aiming for 60 to 80% of your investment in year one, which is super powerful for value add deals like this. Next slide. So from the start, we're locking in a fixed rate loan. The property is already in good shape. We talked about occupancies in the low 90s, which qualifies us for agency financing. And we're targeting a 7-year Freddie Mac loan and aiming for 75% leverage because it gives us a strong balance between maximizing returns and managing risk. We were offered higher options, but we're choosing to stay conservative. And what's really cool is that we're also working with a lender that Gabriel recently closed with. And they're super excited about this deal and definitely ready to offer us that non-recourse fixed rate loan. Next slide.
Great. Gabriel, we let you take a little bit of a break. But guess what? I need you to talk to us. What happens after we close? What's going to happen? What is that going to look like right after we close?
You know, the funny thing is I was a investor in deals like this for, many, many, many years before I started doing these projects myself. And it was important to me for my math side of my brain to keep track of them meeting their requirements from a numerical perspective and giving me as much cash as they said they would. But really, the most important thing to me at the end of the day was like that constant communication and feedback, just to make sure everything was going well. So we cherish that. In fact, yeah, I'm saying it was a lot about me, but really my CFO, my chief financial officer, Sean Griffith, he is militaristic about it. He's a former military guy. And every month you will get a monthly report that talks about how the deal is doing, gives a little bit of a qualitative overview, and also provides you direct access to any of the numbers related to the performance. Does take 1 to 2 months to get a little bit of traction. You can't really talk about trend data when you've only had the property for 2 months, but once we get a few months in, you'll start to see some more of our analytical pieces added to just the regular qualitative overview of the deal. We distribute quarterly. So give us the first 3 months to get the asset rolling and moving. And then that very first distribution we give you, 3 to 6 months in, I should say, will be sort of a catch-up distribution, because right away this thing should be spending out cash, but we do reserve the right to kind of get in there and figure out what's going on under the hood, so to speak, in that first 6 months before we just start sending out the regular distributions. We're going to promise quarterly. Our team is working with some new providers that help bring the cost down. We may end up moving to monthly at some point in the hold. And that's because I put a lot of money in this deal. My family puts a lot of money in these deals. All my partners put a lot of money in these deals, including all of my partners in Steven's team. We are looking at monthly distributions as a way to just continue to enjoy the benefits of these investments. So, we're going to start with quarterly distributions, but at some point we may transition to monthly. I promise that I will do everything in my power. It is my intention to have your K1s not just before April 15th. I mean, that's table stakes. We want to make sure you guys aren't scrambling around for K1s, even though very few providers of this type of opportunity actually get it done by April 15th. We have consistently for the last 3 years since we've been working with the current tax provider or tax return preparer that our team uses. But we aim to do it before March 15th. That's the goal that I give my CFO, because we do have many people that come into these things in like LLCs or have some sort of reporting related to the business sort of cutoff. And so, we really try our best to be above and beyond when it comes to the tax prep side. If we do refinance, we share that extra cash with the investors. It's a non-taxable event. And we do look to sell this particular asset in a 4 to 6 year period. We got a 7-year loan because we've got maximum, sort of optionality. But I think that covers it for this slide.
All right. Well, then I think that about covers it for this presentation. So here's what I need everybody to do. First off, you might have some questions. And if you do, I want to see that in the chat, because like I said, we promised we're going to stick around to answer all of your questions. All right. What I want you to do is, if you're interested in moving forward, even if it's just learning more, even if it's just setting up that phone call, I want you to scan the code right now on the screen. If you're on your desktop, your PC, you can pick up your phone, you can scan that right now. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to drop a link in the chat right now, and that link is going to take you to our investor portal. You're going to log into the investor portal. It's going to ask you a few questions, and then you're going to go from there. Okay. When you log in, I will tell you this. There's going to be a quick little question, and it's going to ask you, are you accredited or not? And if you answer no, then we've got an option for you to go one way. Or if you answer yes, we got an option for you to go another way. But just super easy. All you need to do, click the link in the chat or scan this QR code. The other thing that I'm going to do here is just to help everybody out, make it simple. I got my phone number and my email here. This goes straight to my cell phone that's right here. I'll make myself available. Just send me a text message, send me a call, and I'll absolutely connect you with the other folks on the team here if I need to do that. So real quick, I just want to say I appreciate everybody from the team putting in the effort and showing up today. I know everybody's got families, things going on, Gabriel, yourself included. So shout out to the team. Thank you very, very, very much for that. We want to thank you for your time today. So I know it's Friday. It's beer 30 for some of you. So hopefully you're able to drink a glass of wine, maybe have a nice cool beer while you're watching the webinar. But now the time is yours. So we're going to start answering questions in the chat. Let's see if we got any questions here in the chat. We got a shout out for Dennis. Way to go, Dennis. Gabriel, you're asking to share something. You want to share something right here, bud?
I do, because I like to follow through on my time commitments. Now, I want to make sure that AIM Group, what is the time limit to take advantage of this investment opportunity, gets their question answered first. But if we have the extra time, I'll show you the extra goodie that we found during due diligence that'll make this really interesting. And
all right, so here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop share, and you are able to run with it, man.
okay.
And so while Gabriel's bringing this up, let's get your questions in here.
What is the time limit to take advantage of this opportunity? And I know that Stephen will have a sharper answer on this, but I would say it depends. One of the things it's going to depend on is how quickly you can get on that call and have that conversation, because we want to clarify whether or not you would qualify as somebody that needs to sort of speed up the process a little bit to make sure that you get in before April 24th, Friday, April 24th at midnight. Paperwork only. This isn't about the cash. This is about making the commitment. It's a legal requirement that we get lots of paperwork done, and then we countersign that paperwork. You've had a chance to review the offering in more detail, but your teammates that you're going to reach out to will let you know more about that on the call, on the conversation. The other thing to note is that if you are accredited, there may be a sort of a different timeline for you, a longer timeline for you for getting the paperwork done. But I'll say that, if you know, typically in terms of timing, and we're not talking about sending in any wires before April 24th. This is really about making sure you get the right process and path for filling out paperwork and then getting a commitment before April 24th. I hope I answered your question, AIM Group. Is there a GP-LP split? It's a very simple one. There's no pref. There's no waterfall structure. It doesn't switch to 50-50 later if this thing does better or sells earlier. It is a 75-25 split. Very straightforward deal. Again, projections will get you guys to about 95% over 5 years. Are we open to receiving institutional investors? Institutional investors are beloved. They're great. They drop big checks, but they also often come with the controlled triggers related to them. So every real deal institutional investor that I've worked with has had a thorough conversation about each of the last deals we've done, and it just hasn't worked out yet, but we are always open to that conversation. It just hasn't ever been the right fit for us to sort of build that prescriptive relationship that we're looking for, but we are always open to sort of share our deal flow. And sometimes just sharing our deal flow with an institutional investor will allow them to sort of see what's out there and what's taking place in the marketplace right now. So if it's a friend or a friend of a friend, or it's you, happy to hop on and share more details about what we're doing. But I have not seen deals like this work out with institutional investors yet. And I think that there's an opportunity for it, but it just hasn't happened yet. Let's talk about what our retail investors, which would be the fancy name for all of us on this call who are investing less than $10 million at a time here, what we can be extra excited about. So look, I promised I'd share something. This is not being baked into our underwriting because it kind of came to us a little later than the other pieces. And we said, you know what, let's keep it in our back pocket until we know that the city is good with it. But we know that the city is good with it. So on our menu for this hold, we have the option to create 95, I think I have that number correct, additional bedrooms. No extra square footage, additional bedrooms. And why that plays is we've already got these very large units, but if you look at the floor print, and when we were doing diligence, we kept seeing this. We were like, hey, every fourth time we'd find one of these types of units that has a dining nook that faces a broad wall. So it's not a dining area like you'd be used to in an apartment. Most apartments now, not built in the 70s, but now have a kitchen that's open to the living area. But that's not what they have here. In fact, it's closed off to the living area. we would need to reopen that because they have a dining nook that it's opened up to. If we close off that opening to the kitchen and add a simple door in the upper right-hand corner of that space, on 95 units, we can turn 1 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms. There's 2 different types of 2 bedrooms here, so that's why there's a B1 and a C1. They're both 2 bedrooms. They can become 3 bedrooms. 2 bedrooms converting to 3 bedrooms is an absolute no-brainer. There's huge demand for 3 bedrooms in this area and has a $250 a month rent premium at this moment in time. Again, we're not baking that into our underwriting, but it's only going to cost less than $2,000 to make this change in our existing 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms. You can do it with your 1s to 2s. We'll see. The property management company and I had a long discussion about this last week. We're going to see if there's not sort of some ongoing demand. We only have a handful of 1 bedrooms as it stands, but there's a nice rent bump there. And the most important bump we could make that is sort of takes us and makes us way different than the rest of the market is in our 3 bedrooms, we can actually convert those to 4 bedrooms. It sounds like, what would anybody rent a 4-bedroom apartment for? But having lived and managed and owned in this area for quite a while now, 4-bedroom apartments have a huge premium. I'm thinking of a friend of mine, Jack Landenberg, who is absolutely crushing it with a similarly sort of set up 70s deal because he has 4 bedrooms. They're highly coveted. It allows multiple families on the sort of workforce housing spectrum to kind of move in together. And it also is perfect for the other demographic that we have, which is young people, right? Because you'll find young folks having that 4th roommate that allows them to split up the rent. I wanted to show it to you. There's some exact calculations there, but we're not including that. We don't know how many we're actually going to do. All we know is that it's completely feasible, and we found it on every single one of our A1s, B1s, C1s, and D1s. I'll leave it there.
That's pretty awesome. I'm super excited about that. You hadn't even shared that with me.
Yeah, that was worth the
Gabriel.
wait.
I wanted to
Yeah, that was worth the wait.
95 additional bedrooms, and
That's-
each time it's not like we're adding the bedroom and not getting a pop. Those are bedrooms that are going to have a pop. So
That's crazy.
the idea is this is not like a single family home. I see one of the questions: can you sell now or you want to hold? We have to realize all these things that we're suggesting, right? We have to make this happen, and we do it really fast. It's one of the things that I said earlier in the conversation. Every deal we do, we keep getting better and faster at doing these heavy lifts in the good parts of town. But the real way you make wealth in multifamily is by holding on to the asset for a lot longer than just a couple years. These flips make a nice little bump in everyone's income. We're going to try to hold this thing and maximize the amount of income for folks. Our job is to find the best time to sell in our window before it starts to get into a scenario where we've held it for too long, or we refi it, we take some of that new capital, set it aside, and distribute the rest to everyone, like I'm doing on my other deal where we moved fast and refied after 2 years, which means we're probably going to end up keeping it 6 or 7 years instead of the original 5 we planned because of that refi, because of that cash out. So it depends, Charles. We will see. We'll find out together. That's our job to kind of maximize your return. It has nothing to do with when me personally, Gabe, wants to sell it. It's when I, as your fiduciary, can make the call to maximize your return. And it's one of the reasons I love partnering with Aaron Katz. We both put a bunch of our own money in here, which allows us to face off a little bit when it comes to making big decisions. And we work really well together, but it's a strategic decision based on a lot of data points on, is this the best time to make sure everybody gets paid the most that we possibly could from this hold with the least risk. We call that risk-adjusted returns. Let me stop dorking out. This was amazing. Your team's amazing, Stephen. I would really look forward to working with all of you guys that I haven't met yet. It was flawless. You presented this better than I could articulate it myself. I really appreciated that. And for those of you that I do know, I look forward to being on this with you guys for quite a while.
Couldn't have done it without you, Gabriel. Let's see. Got another question here from Aaron. It looked like there's a good opportunity for a value add. Can someone share the potential on 100K LP exit return, for example? Sorry if I missed it in previous slides.
I'll go back to it. I just got to make sure I share.
And if you need me to, I can run back to it as well.
Yeah, I'll share. I don't want it to get too complicated, but I think, again, forget the versioning piece. You want specifically, I know what you want. So let's do, yeah, that's a perfect example. And so I don't want to confuse anybody. Let's do this top row for you, right? I don't want to confuse anyone. So we're just going to look at that top row. 100K gets you a 95K gain. So you're going to get 195K back in your pocket. On the bottom row, you can see 100K of cash flow. It's going to get you about 4,500 in year one. That starts right away. We'll get that to you before the end of year one. Once we start getting you cash is when we start taking our little 0.5% asset management fee. So like we don't get paid until you get paid. And again, that does not end up being a big number. But we start sending those distributions to you guys in year one on this deal because it cash flows so strong right away. But we're going to ramp up that cash flow. We're trying to be as conservative as possible on here. We've got 4 years of interest only. We put 3 years on here. But yeah, you can see those numbers across the bottom. That's your cash flow in each of the years 1 through 5, plus a nice little payout at the end of 64,500, which brings your total to 95,000 on your 100K investment. Again, sorry for throwing up a slightly different version of the slide that the team shared with you, but I wanted to make sure you had that 100K example because they showed a 50K example. And Max, you have a great question.
Yeah, how did you find this deal, Gabriel? How many? Let me ask this question, Max. You didn't ask this, but I'm going to frame it up for you, Gabriel. How many deals have you looked through to find a deal like this?
Oh, fun times. Well, there's a slide for this. Did I leave it with you guys? I may not have. I did not. I know where it is.
I got it.
It's okay. It's okay. There's just a little picture. It's a stupid picture, but it's basically a picture of the other 154 deals we looked at. So, I think folks that are less locked in to sort of a specific market may have different answers, right? But this is my market. And in Dallas, the real opportunities right now, it's going to sound crazy because it's changed so much. The real opportunities right now are on market deals. If somebody tries to give you a off market deal, that means it's a terrible deal, right? That means it is probably something that you do not want. It's a weird time where somebody tries to sneak you in off market deals because they're trying to trick you. The best deals right now are on market. It's a buyer's market. There's huge opportunity for us to find stuff, but we were being really picky. We wanted the school district to be right, the income to be right, the value add opportunity to be there, day one cash flow. We wanted a lot of things that were really hard to find. And we knew we could pull off turning ugly to beautiful, but we can't move the asset once we buy it. So we were really hunting in only a few specific pockets that have sort of the demographic and the trends we were looking for. We looked at 155 to find this one. It was a competitive process. We went through 2 rounds. In the final round, 3 groups got invited. 2 groups that are each 10 times bigger than me and Aaron combined, and me and Aaron. And the broker ends the call with us, and I'm a little, you don't know how you did. And he calls me back right away, the side, and he goes, Gabe, get Aaron on the phone. So I get Aaron on the phone. He said, Gabe, Aaron, that may have been the best seller presentation I've ever seen. And it was a huge pat on the back. Now, Ford's been around for 10 years. He's not been around 30 years, but it felt really good because he's seen a lot of these. We crushed it. We knew what we wanted to do. We had a vision. We pushed the seller with just a little bit of criticism, but also some respect for what they originally did. When they first took this asset over, they took it from 0 to something. Okay, 5-6 years ago they started to fall off, and it's been a long time that they started to fall off. But when you can see the income, because I have a tool called CoStar, you can see what they did when they first took it over. It just, it was the right balance of constructive feedback with you should sell to us. We actually know what we're doing. And they said the 2 other bigger companies were a little flustered, kind of forgetting facts about this deal because they're confused with some other deal they're chasing. And it became really clear that we would be able to push this deal forward and get it to completion because we had a plan.
Let's see here.
I think that's it.
Hey, I do have a something here to host some panelists. Colleen, I am on it. I will once this call's over, I will start looking in and make sure you're able to get into the portal. And we appreciate you taking action. I appreciate that. So I'm going to do a little shout out. Colleen, I appreciate you taking the action. Anybody else who's ready to take action, let us know. I mean, we're here to celebrate with you. This is a big win for you. So, and we're here to help out. So I got your message. As soon as this webinar is over, I'll jump into that portal. I'll see what's going on, and I'll make sure I reach out to you and get you unstuck. Okay.
I have to say too, those who I invited, some friends, thanks for asking great questions and thanks for being here.
Thanks for giving us some of your time on a Friday too. This team
Absolutely.
is special. I really appreciate y'all, and I take that very seriously. So we will put in the work and look forward to helping answer any additional questions that pop up through the process of sort of getting into the deal at this point. Thank you all.
Gotcha. Well, okay, I got that message, Colleen. I'm not seeing any other questions come through, but let me just really quick. I'm going to hold on, a lot of slides here. Okay, let me just really quick. I will bring this one back up. It's got my name, it's got my number. Take a photo, take a screenshot, scan that QR code if you're ready to start moving forward. I really appreciate your participation. Great audience today. Anything else? We got it. Have a fantastic weekend. And we're excited to have you participate in this deal with us. And we'll get you plugged in next week. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Thanks,
Talk to
Thank you,
soon.
everyone. Thank you.
Have a good
Bye.
Thank
weekend.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recording stopped. you.